Stop looking at the cards. The game is not happening on the table. It is happening in the procedural silence between each hand you play. You are trying to beat the odds, but what if the odds are being manipulated by something you are not even watching? The casino dealer is the most underrated part of the house advantage, trained in tactics that have nothing to do with math. In this video, we will expose the 7 unspoken rules dealers follow that are designed to undermine your judgment and keep you at the table longer. So, how much of your bad luck is actually just part of the dealer's script? To understand what is happening today, you need to know how casino dealing used to work. For decades, dealers were simply card mechanics, people who knew the rules and dealt the games. Their job was purely functional: shuffle, deal, pay out, repeat. Back then, casinos relied on pure mathematical house edge to make money. A dealer's personality, timing, or behavior was not considered part of the strategy. They were human card machines, nothing more. The house edge was enough. This was not just a different era of gambling, it was a different philosophy entirely. The casino was content to let the math do the work. In the formative years of Las Vegas, from the 1940s through the 1960s, dealers operated with a straightforward mandate: run the games efficiently and accurately. The job was technical, focused primarily on mechanical skills like perfect shuffles, precise card handling, and flawless payouts. Casino management understood that as long as the games ran smoothly, the mathematics of probability would inevitably favor the house over time. These early dealers were not trained in psychology or customer management. They were not expected to build rapport or study player behavior. The prevailing wisdom was simple: the longer players stayed at the tables, the more money the house would make, and this would happen naturally through the immutable laws of probability. The old-school Vegas dealer was often a character, sometimes gruff, sometimes charming, but their personality was not weaponized as a business strategy. They were craftspeople who took pride in their technical abilities rather than their psychological influence. The relationship between dealer and player was straightforward, almost transactional in nature. This era of casino dealing reflected a gambling industry that was still finding its footing as a legitimate business. The mathematical edge built into games like blackjack, craps, and roulette was considered sufficient to guarantee profitability. As one veteran dealer from the Sands once remarked, "We just dealt the cards and let the math take care of the rest." But then something changed. In the 1980s and the 1990s, as competition between casinos intensified, corporate ownership took over Las Vegas. They realized something crucial: the dealer was not just part of the game, they were part of the customer experience. Casino management began implementing formal dealer training programs that went far beyond game rules. They started teaching psychology, behavioral observation, and customer retention techniques. The dealer transformed from a neutral facilitator into an active agent of the house. This marked the beginning of a new era where every aspect of dealer behavior became calculated strategy. Dealers are trained to spot tilt when players become emotional and start making bad decisions. They notice betting pattern changes, body language shifts, and verbal tells. Casino dealers undergo extensive training to identify the emotional states of players, particularly the condition known as tilt, a poker term that has spread through casino culture to describe any emotional state that leads to poor decision-making. This surveillance goes far beyond casual observation. Dealers are taught to monitor subtle changes in betting patterns. A player who suddenly increases their bets after several losses, for example, might be entering a dangerous emotional state where they are no longer making rational decisions. The dealer notes this shift and adjusts their approach accordingly, perhaps speeding up the game slightly to capitalize on the player's compromised judgment. Physical tells are equally important in this emotional profiling. Dealers look for indicators such as tightened jaw muscles, white knuckles when handling chips, increased drinking, or changes in breathing patterns. Even the way a player places their bet can signal emotional distress. Chips slammed down rather than placed carefully. For example, verbal cues complete this psychological picture. Players who become unusually quiet, excessively talkative, or who begin to verbalize their strategy out loud are often exhibiting signs of compromised decision-making. Dealers are trained to respond to these cues with precisely calibrated responses that keep the player engaged, rather than allowing them to step back and regain emotional equilibrium. What makes this profiling particularly effective is that it is happening in real time, with dealers making micro-adjustments to their dealing style, pattern, and pace based on the emotional data they are continuously gathering. Unlike the players, who are focused on their cards and bets, the dealer is emotionally uninvested in the outcome, allowing for clear, rational observation and response. Experienced dealers can identify your playing style within minutes and know exactly when you are chasing losses. From the moment you sit down at a table, dealers begin cataloging your gambling DNA. This isn't casual observation. It's systematic behavioral analysis designed to predict your future decisions and maximize your losses. Within just a few hands, a skilled dealer has already categorized your play style into established profiles. Are you a conservative player who sticks to basic strategy, or a risk taker who doubles down aggressively? Do you increase bets after wins or after losses? Each of these patterns reveals psychological vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Dealers pay particular attention to how you respond to losses, because this is where most players deviate from rational strategy. They watch for the telltale signs of chasing, such as increasing bet sizes after losses, playing hands you would normally fold, or abandoning previously consistent strategies. Once a dealer identifies that you are chasing losses, they can subtly encourage this behavior through pacing, commentary, or even their demeanor. This habit tracking extends to how you interact with other aspects of the casino experience. Dealers note how often you drink, whether you are playing on what appears to be a budget or freely spending, and how you interact with other players. All of this information helps them customize their approach to maximize your time at the table. Perhaps most importantly, dealers recognize pattern breaks, moments when you deviate from your established play style. These deviations often signal emotional decision-making and represent opportunities for the house to capitalize on compromised judgment. The sophisticated habit tracking performed by dealers is not just about the current session. Information about high-value players is often communicated between shifts or even recorded in customer management systems, creating a longitudinal profile of your playstyle that can be leveraged across multiple visits. While you focus on the immediate outcome of a hand or a spin, dealers understand the mathematical certainty that every game favors the house. They also know exactly how quickly those edges compound. Dealers have an intimate understanding of the math behind every casino game. That knowledge fundamentally changes how they perceive the gaming experience compared with players, because dealers think in long-term probabilities rather than one-off results. For example, a blackjack player using perfect basic strategy still faces a house edge of around 0.5%. Every decision that deviates from optimal strategy increases that edge, often dramatically. When a player makes a mathematically unsound move, dealers are not neutral observers. They are watching the house edge expand in real time. More importantly, dealers understand the compounding effect of the house edge across hundreds of hands. Even a small 1% advantage, applied over a sufficient volume of bets, guarantees player losses. This long-term perspective is something most players lack, because they focus on short-term fluctuations that feel meaningful but are really statistical noise. Dealers also know how specific rule variations change the house edge. When a blackjack table pays 6-5 instead of 3-2 on a natural blackjack, the dealer knows this seemingly small change increases the house advantage by approximately 1.4%, a significant shift that most players miss. This mathematical certainty creates an asymmetry in the gambling relationship. While players hope to beat the odds, dealers know with absolute certainty that the odds cannot be beaten over time. That knowledge lets dealers view player emotions and decisions with clinical detachment that players simply cannot match. Strategic tips can slow down dealing pace during hot streaks, but dealers remember who tips and make subtle adjustments to their energy. The relationship between tipping and game flow represents one of the most subtle but effective psychological levers in casino gaming. This dynamic operates on multiple levels, creating complex incentive structures that ultimately benefit the house. When a player is experiencing a winning streak, Dealers can subtly manipulate the pace of the game in response to tipping behavior. A player who tips generously during a hot streak may find the dealer slowing down slightly, ostensibly as a courtesy to allow the player to enjoy their good fortune, but effectively reducing the number of hands played while the player is winning. This pacing adjustment happens almost imperceptibly through slightly longer shuffles, more elaborate chip handling, or increased table talk. Conversely, during losing streaks, dealers tend to maintain a brisker pace for players who do not tip, maximizing the number of hands and thus the mathematical extraction of player funds. This pacing differential is not dramatic enough to be obvious, but it is sufficient to impact the total number of hands played during winning versus losing phases. Dealers also maintain sophisticated mental ledgers of tipping behavior that influence their overall approach to players. Regular tippers receive subtle preferential treatment, more animated celebrations of their wins, more sympathetic responses to their losses, and more personalized interaction. This creates a sense of alliance, or partnership, that does not actually exist in financial reality. Perhaps most importantly, tipping creates a psychological conflict for players. The social obligation to tip after winning hands means that players are effectively giving back a portion of their winnings to the very system designed to take their money. This creates a situation where even player victories include an element of loss, a sophisticated psychological mechanism that benefits the house. The tipping dynamic also reinforces the illusion that the dealer and player are somehow on the same team, despite the mathematical reality that the dealer is the physical embodiment of the house edge. This false alignment further compromises player judgment and decision-making. Dealers coordinate with cocktail servers to ensure drinks arrive when you are betting big, knowing alcohol impairs judgment and timing. The strategic coordination between dealers and cocktail servers is one of the most carefully choreographed aspects of the casino ecosystem, designed specifically to impair player judgment at key decision points. This coordination is far from random. It is a calculated system for maximizing player losses. Dealers are trained to monitor player betting patterns and to signal cocktail servers when players enter phases of increased betting. This is not done through obvious communication, but through subtle cues and timing awareness that develops between casino staff. The goal is simple, but effective. Ensure that alcohol consumption increases in direct proportion to the size of the player's wagers. The psychological effectiveness of this strategy is well documented. Alcohol impairs cognitive function, particularly the brain's ability to make risk assessments and probability calculations, exactly the skills needed for sound gambling decisions. Even moderate alcohol consumption can lead players to make larger bets, play longer sessions, and deviate from strategic discipline. Timing is crucial in this coordination. Cocktail servers do not just randomly appear at tables, they arrive at psychologically optimal moments. When a player wins several hands in a row, for instance, the appearance of a server offers an opportunity to celebrate with a drink, reinforcing the false perception that a hot streak is occurring rather than normal statistical variance. Casino management understands the direct correlation between alcohol consumption and increased house win rates. Internal studies at major casinos have shown that players who consume alcohol lose money at significantly higher rates than sober players. This knowledge drives specific training protocols for both dealers and servers. The complementary nature of these drinks creates another layer of psychological manipulation. Players feel they are receiving something of value for free, creating a sense of reciprocity and obligation that extends their playtime. In reality, the cost of these drinks is a minimal investment compared to the increased losses they facilitate. Dealers are trained to celebrate small wins because temporary victories keep players happy and betting longer. They know the casino profits from eventual losses. The sophisticated psychological strategy behind dealer responses to player wins reveals a deep understanding of human motivation and risk assessment. Dealers are not just passive observers of your occasional victories. They are active participants in a carefully calibrated reinforcement system. When you experience small to moderate wins, dealers respond with enthusiasm and congratulations that might seem genuine, but are actually part of a strategic response. This positive reinforcement serves multiple purposes in the casino's player retention strategy. First, these celebrations create what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful motivational mechanisms known. The occasional win celebrated by the dealer triggers dopamine releases that strengthen your desire to continue playing. This is the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. Second, dealers understand that players who experience modest wins are significantly more likely to continue playing until those winnings, and usually more, are returned to the house. Internal casino data confirms that players who win early in their sessions typically play longer and ultimately lose more than those who lose immediately. Dealers are specifically trained to modulate their responses based on the size of the win. Small to moderate wins receive enthusiastic responses, while massive wins, those that might actually hurt the house, receive more muted professional acknowledgments. This calibrated response system subtly encourages you to continue playing after modest wins, but does not overly celebrate outcomes that genuinely favor the player. Perhaps most importantly, by celebrating your small wins, dealers create the illusion of a more balanced, fair gaming experience than the mathematical reality supports. This perception management is crucial for player retention, as it masks the inexorable extraction of money that the house edge guarantees over time. The most experienced dealers know when to suggest you cash out, not from genuine concern, but because this builds trust for future visits. When a dealer suggests you might want to consider cashing out while you are ahead, they are engaging in one of the most sophisticated psychological operations in the casino playbook. This seemingly benevolent advice is actually a long-term investment in your future losses. Experienced dealers deploy this tactic selectively and strategically. They might suggest cashing out when you have won a moderate amount, enough to feel successful, but not so much that the house is genuinely concerned. This creates several powerful psychological effects that ultimately benefit the casino. First, it establishes the dealer as a seemingly trustworthy figure who appears to have your financial interests at heart, despite their actual role as an agent of the house. This perceived alliance is extremely valuable for the casino because it lowers your psychological defenses in future interactions. Second, allowing you to leave with winnings creates a powerful positive association with the gambling experience. You do not just remember the excitement of playing, you remember actually winning, a narrative that will bring you back to the tables with greater confidence and larger bankrolls in the future. Most importantly, dealers understand that players who win occasionally become much more valuable long-term customers than those who always lose. By appearing to help you secure a win, the dealer is actually helping secure your status as a returning player who will statistically lose much more over time than you won during your successful session. Casino management explicitly encourages this tactic because data shows that players who leave with winnings return more quickly, bet more aggressively on their return, and ultimately lose more money over their customer lifetime than those who consistently lose. Your winning session becomes a marketing expense that yields substantial returns. The dealer's suggestion to cash out is particularly effective because it seems to contradict the casino's financial interests in the moment, making it appear more genuine. In reality, it is a sophisticated application of lifetime value principles that sacrifices short-term revenue for much larger long-term gains. So here we are today. The dealer you sit across from isn't just dealing cards. They are executing a carefully crafted psychological strategy. Every smile, every comment about your luck, every perfectly timed pause is part of a system designed to keep you playing longer. You are not just fighting the mathematical house edge anymore. You are competing against trained behavioral specialists who study your every move while maintaining the illusion of being neutral facilitators. The average player walks into a casino thinking they are playing against chance. In reality, they are playing against a coordinated system of psychological manipulation that includes the dealer as a key component. Modern casino dealers undergo training programs recognizable to any corporate sales force or behavioral psychology student. They learn techniques drawn from behavioral economics, cognitive psychology, and theatrical performance. The job is no longer about mechanical card handling. It is about managing the player experience to maximize revenue. What makes this system particularly effective is its invisibility to most players. While sophisticated gamblers might recognize some tactics, the majority of patrons remain unaware of the psychological architecture built into every interaction with their dealer. The illusion of randomness and fair play remains intact, while highly refined psychological levers operate beneath the surface. The modern casino environment represents a near-perfect synthesis of mathematical advantage and psychological manipulation. The house edge guarantees profits over time, while dealer techniques accelerate that timeline by encouraging suboptimal player decisions, extended play sessions, and increased betting during vulnerable emotional states. Every element of the dealer's behavior, from their pacing to their conversation topics, from celebrating your wins to commiserating with your losses, has been analyzed and incorporated into training programs focused on a single metric: maximizing the time and money you spend at the table. So when you sit down at a blackjack table or a roulette wheel, understand this: the dealer is not your friend, and they are not your enemy either. They are a professional doing a job that requires them to use your own psychology against you. The casinos did not just professionalize the dealing, they weaponized it. They turned what should be a neutral human interaction into another profit center. Every training manual, every psychological technique, every behavioral observation is designed to extract maximum value from your gambling session. This is not about dealers being dishonest. It is about an entire industry that has systematically transformed every element of the gambling experience into a revenue optimization tool. And the dealer standing in front of you is the final piece of that machine. The dealer operates at the nexus of multiple sophisticated systems, all designed to separate you from your money in the most efficient way possible. They represent the human face of an industrial scale, wealth extraction operation refined over decades of psychological research, behavioral analysis, and profit optimization. What is particularly insidious about the system is how it disguises itself as entertainment, as a fair contest against chance, or even as a path to wealth. The dealer's friendly demeanor and professional presentation maintain this illusion, while the mathematical reality of the house edge inexorably grinds away at your bankroll. The professionalization of dealing has created a scenario where even when you win, you are actually losing in the long run. The psychological tactics employed by dealers do not just extract more money during losing sessions. They ensure your return for future sessions where the same extraction process can continue. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is business optimization in an industry whose primary product is carefully managed risk. Casinos do not leave their profitability to chance, and dealers represent their most direct tool for influencing player behavior in real time. The transformation of the dealer role from mechanical facilitator to psychological operator happened gradually, enough that most players never noticed the change. The dealer standing across the table from you today is as different from their 1960s counterpart as a modern smartphone is from a rotary dial telephone. They have turned your friendly neighborhood card dealer into a behavioral specialist, trained to read your every tell. You deserve to know when you are being played. If this opens your eyes to how deep casino psychology really goes, hit the like button and subscribe for more insider revelations they do not want you to know. What is the strangest dealer behavior you have noticed? Share your story below.